Hey everybody, this video is about plagiarism and what plagiarism is, what it is not, and how you should approach plagiarism generally, or rather how you should avoid it generally. And my son is crying. Hold on. Okay, I think where we were was talking about plagiarism. Yes, the Council of Writing Program Administrators. That's what we're looking at here. So this is taken from their website. It's their statement. It's from their statement on plagiarism, and it's a very dramatic and highly impassioned statement. Anyway, this is just good information for you to have. I'll leave it at that. In an instructional setting, this is their definition of plagiarism. Plagiarism occurs when a writer deliberately uses someone else's language, ideas, or other original, not common knowledge, material without acknowledging its source. Okay. Poorly worded? Yes. Alarming that the Council of Writing Program Administrators would write plagiarism occurs when a writer rather than a writer plagiarizes when? Yes. But, you know, we'll forgive them that. No, we can't forgive that. Or we can say no, we want to keep it plural so that we can use the, oh, not that. Writers plagiarize when they deliberately use someone else's language. There, that's better. In instruction, it's the same thing now. It means the same thing, but it's clearer. Anyway, there are other things we could do to it, but we won't, because this is not the video on editing. This is the video on plagiarism. So take note of that definition and put that in your pocket and make sure that you're aware of it. Now, there are a couple of problems with this as a definition, because as you know, plagiarism is a big deal in the university and in the academy broadly. It's one of the few things that you can do to get kicked out. Well, there's a lot of things you can do to get kicked out. It's one of the few non-criminal acts that you can engage in that can get you dropped from a class, fail an assignment, kicked out. So yeah, they've chosen this language, I think, pretty carefully, though, despite the clunkiness of their definition, because of this word deliberately. And this makes it kind of hazy, because you could always argue like, well, I didn't mean to do it. But we can't really prove intent, right? So it's going to be up to the university if there's any intent there. So this is the video about that intent. Let me tell you what would guarantee a charge of plagiarism, right? So like, let's say you turn in a paper that somebody wrote for my class a couple of years ago. That's plagiarism. That's intentional plagiarism. Let's say that you turn in a paper from my class that you also turned into a previous version of my class. Also plagiarism, right? You can't reuse material, you know. It's and I know that sounds ridiculous, but imagine if someone hired you to mow their lawn twice and you mowed it once and they were like, yeah, but I mowed it before, so pay me twice. It's the same kind of thing. Each assignment is a discrete task that has to be completed in its own terms. So yeah, I've added in here, by the way, the link to this overall document. There are a lot of different ways of plagiarizing and a lot of different reasons for plagiarizing, and I get it. You've got a lot at stake here. That said, do not plagiarize. Do not cheat. We'll talk about the moral reasons why you shouldn't do it in the first place. Let's talk about the practical reasons why you shouldn't do it first. One, you are very likely to be caught. I've caught a lot of people over, like, in the sort of, in the history of teaching English. I've gotten pretty good at recognizing it, even if Turnitin.com doesn't. I know there are ways of fooling and tricking Turnitin.com. There, I'm not going to list the ways that I know in case you don't know them, and I don't want to encourage you to try them with other teachers. But it's one of those things where it's pretty recognizable, generally speaking, especially considering the corpus of your work that I have now. I have all of your journals, so I know how you write. And if you write something that's drastically different from that, it's going to send up some red flags. Anyway, so please don't cheat. It's just not worth it. Besides which, this is one of those things where it's sort of like if you go to the gym and you use like inflatable weights instead of using like real weights, you're not going to get any stronger. The way these courses are laid out and the way that the assignments relate to the learning outcomes of the course is that you have to actually do the work. This is especially true now since we're in this kind of digital environment, that most of the learning is going to happen not because you're listening to me talk, but because I give you something to do and then you go do it. It's in the act of doing the thing that you're going to learn how to that you're going to progress, right? And that's what we're after, is that progression. I don't want to be in charge of like policing plagiarism. I find it boring and quite dumb. And that's not what I was trained to do, right? I didn't become a teacher because I just loved catching people cheating, and that's what I wanted to do with my life. That's not it at all. It's just kind of a necessary evil. You have to do your own work, right? It devalues all of the work of your fellow students, and it devalues the value of a degree and the meaning of the degree when people cheat. So just don't cheat. Let's talk about generally ethical reasons why plagiarism exists in the first place. Why you can't just the information's there on Wikipedia. Why can't I just copy and paste it in? First of all, it is because I'm after the work. The end product, the paper that you write, is not my goal. It's not something that I personally need. And so that's why I'm making you write it. I'm not looking for the information on the topics that you all chose for your papers, right? I'm looking for a paper as a representation of a certain kind of mental work that you have done. And that's what I'm after, right? So the very nature of the assignment is that the work is the point. The paper is just the indication of the work, and two, of past work that you have, or in some cases haven't done. Plagiarism itself is related to, it's not identical, but it's related to copyright. And copyright's one of those things that's usually kicked around, like we don't hear about it in our sort of day-to-day lives. We only hear about it when it's, YouTube's taking something down, or this portion of a Twitch stream has been silenced, or this person's getting sued for X amount of money for illegally downloading videos or something like that. We hear about it in those contexts. But the idea of copyright is actually a really important idea within human progression and human history. So, for example, imagine that you are living in 1300s England, right? And you're a serf, and you're just, out shoveling mud or whatever it is you do, and you have this really great idea for a new type of stone mill that will grind wheat into flour, right? So you have this idea, and you go to your feudal lord and you say, I've got me a new idea, sir. And they say, great, that's a good idea. And then they take it and you don't get anything from it, right? Well, you're not very motivated to come up with more ideas because it didn't improve your life at all. It just improved the life of someone who's already benefiting from all of your labor. Same thing with, let's say you come up with a great story and you write this story down and you start sharing it, and then somebody else takes it and then they print it and sell it. This is really bad. So one of the ways that we value ideas over wealth, as strange as it sounds, is copyright. So it's not just the big, powerful, important people who get to benefit from ideas. The person who has the idea now gets to benefit. This is when copyright kind of becomes a thing, is not in the 1300s. It wasn't then. It's only a couple hundred years old that we really started paying attention to this. But authors should get paid for their work. If we're living in now, we're transitioning to, hypothetically, what people are calling the gig economy, right? And you've probably seen memes online, or maybe you've experienced this directly, of people saying oh, I'll pay you with exposure, right? That's not how that works. You have to actually get paid for your work. It's the same thing here. I know that we're not in a financial agreement with your grade. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that there's a relationship between the work that you do and then the result. And when you plagiarize, it messes with the economics, to use it metaphorically, of that relationship, and it flies in the face of ownership of ideas, this idea of ownership, the idea of ownership of ideas, which is a really important idea historically for the progression of of society generally, but more importantly for that kind of economic mobility, right? For people to be able to have ideas and then benefit from them is a way that people who are less advantaged move up the ladder, right? That they gain things. So that's one of the reasons why we take plagiarism so incredibly seriously, is because it's not just about like catching students cheating and making sure you don't cheat. It's because it's connected to this idea of ownership and rights, and it is kind of a fundamental moral question. So even though it doesn't seem like a big deal when you like, oh, your friend has this thing they wrote for another class and it kind of fits for this, if you change a little bit around and turn it in, even though that doesn't seem like a very big deal, it's a really big deal. It's a really big deal. And it's important to me that you also see it as a really big deal and that you take it very seriously. So let's differentiate and review here. I'm not talking about misuse of sources when we're talking about plagiarism. We're going to go ahead and accept the WPA Council's views on that for the purposes of this class. It's not making any statement about how the university defines plagiarism. But when you're dealing with me, we're only talking about intentional plagiarism, okay? So the next several videos that you're going to watch from me are all going to be related to the use of sources, their misuse and appropriate use, and how to sort of integrate them into your material, all right? So that's going to be the stuff that you might have in the past worried about. I don't want to accidentally plagiarize. That's going to be all that stuff. This video is just kind of a bit of a gut check and a bit of a way of saying, like, let's take this very seriously. Don't cheat. It's not some sort of like victimless crime. This sounds so dramatic, but it erodes one of the pillars that holds up society and allows for social mobility. So please, I am begging you, let's just go ahead and resolve right now. I'm not going to cheat. All right. Thanks. And next video will be uploaded soon. And yeah, you guys stay safe. Wash your hands well. Don't cough on anybody. And don't go anywhere if you can help it. Thanks. Bye.